These are the times that try men's souls.
To me, this is not just another nation. It is not just one of the family of nations. This is a nation with a great mission to perform for the benefit of liberty-loving people everywhere.
That we shall be as a city upon a hill.
These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of his country.
You've come to fight as three men. Three men you are. What will you do without freedom?
Proclaim liberty throughout all the land.
In one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. You gotta fight for your right. Can you dig it?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of Real News in the Morning. My name is Mr. Henry. How is everybody doing this morning? Another great episode of Real News. What's the date today? June 22nd it is, about 9:02 in the morning. Yes, that's correct. Man, how's everybody been over the weekend? How was y'all's weekend? Let us know in the comment section wherever you so happen to be watching this from right now. Let us know how you've been, what you're struggling with, what you need help with, any of that stuff. Greatest audience in the nation appreciation segment. Really appreciate you guys being here, doing what you do. One of the themes for the show today, by the way, and possibly this entire week, my weekend wasn't that great, if I'm being honest. Right? It was, well, I mean, it was, but it wasn't. It's just, some rough conversations, just like this general sense in headlines and conversation and community that's like, we're just not like getting along really. Tennessee legislature's having spats in the House that is leading to a special session. They're tweeting back and forth about each other, dropping weird names on each other, calling each other Pinocchio. I mean, it's just strange stuff, man. It's just really, really strange stuff. We go into other headlines here in the national sense that, dude, there's a cancel university hashtag going around that's now trending. That's basically some dude on the right who has now become completely convinced that he is forced to play by the rules on the left. So he's just going to shut down every major university in the nation. We're tearing down statues of people that just like, what does this even have to do with anything anymore? I mean, seriously, anything anymore. So we're taking down statues of Ulysses S. Grant, Thomas Jefferson, now George Washington. I got a clip in here we're going to play in a second of John Oliver mocking President Trump relentlessly back in 2017 because President Trump had the gall, the audacity to even mention that, hey, what are we going to be doing next? We're going to be taking down, Jefferson. Everyone thought that was the most ridiculous thing just 3 years ago. Well, we're here now, aren't we? We have the UN now supporting Antifa. It's like, dude, nobody can make sense of anything right now. And I feel like when we started this thing, whatever this March stuff was, I mean, from day one, it was like, okay, cool, we're on the same page. We're unified. Cool. But then all of a sudden it was like division. So I guess one of the themes for today is like, can we just like promote ideas that have more to do with freedom and less to do with control? Can we promote ideas that have more to do with unity and less to do with division? That's all I'm asking for. That's my appeal to the greatest audience in the nation. Shine, buddy, how are you doing on your end there? Everything good over there in the East Tennessee way?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's great. I roasted marshmallows to the world burning down the other day, so it was really great. It was really great.
That's what I'm talking about.
But ready for another fantastic week of Real News with you and the Real News family. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're doing well today.
And let's see here, just so everybody knows. We are on, man, Sean, give me a rundown of all the stuff we're on right now, by the way, because Facebook is not the main place that we're going to be actually pushing people to or really addressing from this point forward. But we got Twitch, YouTube. I mean, I can't make sense of them.
So first thing, we are, the main resource is realnewsradio.live. That's where you can find all the info for our streams. But starting maybe a couple hours after the show today, there'll be links from the drop-down menu at Real News Radio Live that are external links. You'll be able to see them there. We have a Parler, Real News Radio at Parler, not Parler.com, but Parler is a new social media site. We're going to be on Parler. We're going to be on Minds. And if you can get into it, it's kind of an exclusive club. I had to be a beta tester in order to get into it, but ThinkSpot, Jordan Peterson's new social media platform. We also have an account there, and I'm going to be putting links to that, all those places, at realnewsradio.live from the drop-down menu at the top. But we're going to continue streaming on Facebook as long as we can, but most of our posting content will no longer be there.
Yeah.
And we want to try to move all of y'all to somewhere else besides Facebook, because we love you guys. We don't want to leave you behind, but we're going to leave Facebook eventually.
Yeah, or Facebook is going to make us leave.
Yeah, one or the other.
One of the two, man. Let's be for real, right? By the way, I just realized looking at the stream here, yes, there's a weird thing happening with my chair back here. The green screen sitting behind me is having a little bit of a finicky morning, so just deal with that. It is what it is. I'll figure it out after this show. Maybe my lighting is off. Let's dive straight into the local news, though, here. Let's see, man. Like I said before, actually, let me do this real quick. Let me update with all these things that I pulled up. All right, so we told y'all over the weekend that we were going to look into some of these bills. There's a bunch of stuff coming out as far as it pertains to the Tennessee legislature. And I'm talking a bunch of the bills that Americans for Prosperity have been working on towards the latter half of the legislative session. That stuff might go into a special session. More on that in just a second. Some of the bills that actually did end up getting passed, so that we did end up seeing some stuff on, though, is past chamber, at least past second chamber votes, and we're going into some of this other stuff. So we talked about the drug-free school zone reform. That's something we've been keeping the Real News audience up to date on, though. Let's see. We also have a voting rights restoration bill. Now, this one surprised me, honestly. This is something that Americans for Prosperity have been putting substantial work into. I'm talking substantial work into at the very beginning. And it ended up passing second chamber vote, apparently. Let's see here. Going to this thing here. Yes. No, that's a bail. There's bail reform here, too. That's one different one. Here we go. All right, so it's HB 547. This is introduced, restores the voting rights of persons convicted of certain infamous crimes upon receipt of a pardon or completion of any sentence of incarceration, parole, or probation. Now, I got to dive much more into this. Because when one of these bills initially started, what we were trying to do, by we, I mean myself, a coalition of a bunch of folks, NAACP, ACLU, Equity Alliance, AFP, it was a bunch of folks on this, like Project Return, which is a fantastic organization here in Nashville that gets people directly as they leave prison. A lot of people don't realize this, but man, after you're out of prison, they just kind of kick you out. They say, here you go. Whatever you came in with is what you get when you go out, and just best of luck to you type thing, right? People don't know where to go. They don't have jobs. They don't know where to sleep that night. Project Return helps them figure out all that stuff. They were also in on this sort of organization or coalition, if you will. Initially, how this bill started, and I got to follow up to see where it's sitting now, but initially what we were trying to do is untie any financial obligations from being able to vote. So we're basically saying, as long as you served your parole or probation or whatever else might be, once you've reached the end of that statutory period of when you've served your time, a lot of people were still unable to vote because they owed financial obligations, be it some type of restitution bill, be it some type of court fees and fines, be it something like that. And our assessment was financial obligations alone probably shouldn't be something that's holding someone back from the right to vote. I mean, the great franchise is it's called the great franchise for a reason, right? It's a constitutional, I mean, it's one of the most protected things out there. In a representative republic, that's how you represent yourself, right? So initially, the bill was to untie those financial obligations as long as you've served the end of your parole. I have to look into see what this one actually does. But suffice to say, hey, man, we got some voter restitution coming through. We also have some stuff with bail and bail bonds. And this is, again, from Curcio, HB 1131, as introduced, creates a rebuttable presumption that a person charged with a bailable offense will not violate the conditions of their release if the offense is expungible and the person has not been previously convicted of an offense that is ineligible for expunction. Another one I wanted to bring to y'all's attention, again, is a right to work amendment. That's SJR 648, SJR 648. That definitely ended up passing as well, looks like. Constitutional amendment proposes adding a provision establishing a right to work regardless of status of affiliation with any labor union or employee organization. Just a bunch of liberty wins, a bunch of wins that are slightly in the vein of libertarian-esque philosophy. Wanted to bring y'all up to date on a lot of that stuff as well. Just good stuff, man. Good stuff happening in the Tennessee legislature. Let me go into the first story of the day, coming from Tennessee, because this kind of gets to one of the themes of today. Can we all just calm down and take a beat again for a second? All right, and stop playing the same rules that the other side has set up. I mean, some point, some side has to hold themselves to virtues and values that are above the other side and just call it for what it is. Let truth reign supreme. Don't worry about the repercussions. Now, this is weird that I'm talking about this in the Tennessee legislature, but more as this story unfolds, you'll start to see what I'm talking about. We do this to ourselves as well, whoever we is. Doesn't matter. Here's the story, Tennessee. Governor Lee may call a special session. Lieutenant Governor alleges House members lied about coronavirus liability bill. And this all comes down to that coronavirus liability bill. A quick sort of TLDR type thing for this is that the Senate wanted to pass the coronavirus liability bill. The House wanted to pass something with telemedicine. Neither one of them really wanted to work with the other one. So both of those just failed, and now we got a name-calling situation going on, all right? That's what's going to lead possibly to the special session coming up. And again, don't take my word for it completely. I'm kind of catching myself up to speed on some of this stuff. Go fill yourself in some of it. Here's where we go, though. Hours after Tennessee General Assembly's early morning adjournment Friday, Governor Lee's office confirmed that he is considering calling the legislature back for a special session. The announcement coincided with the lieutenant governor's alleged there's a Pinocchio in the House. I mean, dude, I guess, like, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit more funny for me because I know some of these people, but I don't know, man. Again, quick, hard line of delineation. We do this show, Sean and I doing this show on our own time. This is not representative of any organization that we work for. This is not representative of any other person outside of just what we're saying here. But yes, Lieutenant Governor did call a few people in the House Pinocchios. Now, while the legislature struck a deal on a budget, including passing Lee's sweeping abortion restriction legislation, we spoke about that on Friday, multiple bills in the chamber believed that they would find common ground and did not advance as lawmakers unsuccessfully tried to iron out the details. Senators and House members were miffed the legislation did not pass, legislature did not pass a coronavirus immunity bill. Now, again, we spoke about this on Thursday. This was after the House declined to adopt the Senate's decision and make the legislation apply retroactively. Now, why that was such a big sticking point for some of them, frankly, I don't know. I mean, you could take these individuals at their word if you wanted to. Some of the legislature said, we don't want to support the coronavirus liability bill if it's meant to apply retroactively because it will have constitutional problems. I think that's a tangent we don't have time to get into right now, but take it at my word, that was the problem they were having. A few in particular, i.e. Representative Curcio and Representative Lambert. Now, a second bill, a higher priority in the House, sought to expand telemedicine. Now, you guys are well up to date on this. We've been talking about telemedicine for a very long time in the state. To expand telemedicine privileges to specialized care providers, but also that died due to failed negotiations. Lieutenant Governor McNally said that the Senate's passage of the telemedicine bill was conditional on the House passing the liability protection. So you see the scenario we have set up, right? At the very end here, the Senate's trying to get done with this legislative session as quickly and as soon as possible. So they push everything up until the last minute. And then you have two bills sitting out there where the Senate's like, well, we'll pass yours if you pass ours. And the House says, we'll pass yours if you pass ours. And then nobody passes either one of them. It's just typically what ends up happening here. Now, McNally made it clear on Friday, this is last Friday, what the special session, if there is a special session to come, what the special session should center on, saying he fully supported returning to take up the coronavirus liability bill and nothing else. Doesn't exactly sound like a negotiation center to me. That's just my personal opinion. Sounds like the Senate is saying, we'll come back as long as you take up our bill, but we're not listening to your bill. This is his quote. The failure of the House to pass legislation protecting our state's businesses has created an opportunity for trial lawyers seeking a payday to disrupt our economy and put people out of work. He may not be wrong on that. He may not be wrong. Continuing, he alleged that multiple House members had, quote, cobbled together a cabal of Democrats and attorneys to defeat the legislation and place our entire economy in danger. I don't know, man. I don't pretend to understand what's going on behind the scenes with that either. I mean, this is just his statement. Take it for what you will. I'm reading from the Tennessean here. Specifically, McNally in his statement named House Majority Leader William Lambert and Republican here, and then again Representative Curcio. He's a Republican from Dixon on the House Judiciary Committee. Curcio, he's the sponsor of the House versions of the bill. He said that he maintained he was, quote, was not going to pass an unconstitutional bill, again, because of the retroactive application of this bill. He said, quote, you don't have a deal until you get a deal with the House Judiciary Chairman. This isn't funny. This shouldn't be funny, man. It's a little bit funny. It is a little bit funny. You don't have a deal until you get a deal with the House Judiciary Chairman. And the Speaker of the House, Curcio, said that he was backing away from a handshake agreement. He went on to say, we came to the table in good faith and worked out what I felt was a very even compromise between both bills. When they decided to go back on that, we weren't going to let them get away with it. So you see what I'm saying here now, man? At some point in life and in the Tennessee legislature, when stuff really ends up mattering sometimes, you end up just fighting with the person next door. And we all forgot with the fact that, like, dude, people's lives are kind of on the line here. I mean, it might be a little bit bombastic, but you hear what I'm saying. I'm not trying to overproportionalize this too much. I'm just saying these are very important bills, man. Liability protection, telemedicine. This is good stuff. This is substantive stuff. This is important stuff. And now I'm reading an article from the Tennessean. It's kind of like, well, the stuff doesn't really matter that much. Now it's about, like he said, she said, pointing fingers and Twitter spats. Here's what I mean by the Twitter spats. In a statement, House Speaker Cameron Sexton, he's a Republican from Crossville, obviously, on Friday evening referenced tweets made from McNally. Again, if you're not following with the names, McNally's lieutenant governor, basically head of the Senate, if you will. McNally's official account in which he tagged Lamberth and Curcio, saying, quote, finger pointing at members, this is Sexton's statement, saying finger pointing at members on social media because they express their opinions is not a productive way to arrive at an effective solution. Even after the inability of the Senate proposal to gain 50 votes in the House, the Senate turned down multiple opportunities to negotiate last night. So now we got the Speaker of the House involved in this, right? So then we got the Speaker of the House, we got the head of Judiciary Committee. They're going back and forth on pretty important bills. They're singling each other out in Twitter spats. It's like, dude, I mean, come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. Here's the final point of this whole Pinocchio fiasco. McNally ends up calling a House member Pinocchio. In an interview on Friday, Lieutenant Governor took issue with Curcio's characterization of the events from the night before. Again, keep in mind, Curcio was the guy that was like, we had a deal. You all backed out on the deal. I'm not going to go back. McNally said in response to Curcio's statement, Curcio, thy name is Pinocchio. I'm going to stand for the Senate to be dragged. Sorry, I'm not going to stand for the Senate to be dragged in the mud by an individual who doesn't state the facts. Now, this is where it's like, dude, I told y'all. Like, Sean and I have been trying to tell you for a while. Okay, if we keep focusing on this nonsensical division, and I'm not necessarily saying this is exactly what's happening, I don't pretend to understand the Tennessee legislature. From the point of reading it from a media narrative, it seems a little bit like, can we calm down? Can we find some point of commonality? Because Curcio's response was this. Reached afterward, Curcio asserted that McNally was using the term as a slur about his Italian heritage, which he said he was proud of, and noting his grandfather was an Italian-American during WW2 when he moved to Tennessee in the 1940s. McNally's response to that was, this is the most preposterous assertion I have heard in the last 48 hours, and I have heard quite a few. It was a comment on his veracity, not his ethnicity. All right, dude. All right. So I don't know. I don't know what game is being played out right now. I don't pretend to try and understand a lot of this stuff that's going on anymore. Let me know how you're feeling about this in the comment section here at Facebook. I'll go through some of these Facebook comments right now. Because the next couple stories that we have, I'm basically going into again. Can we just calm down for a minute? Can we stop playing the same rules that the other side is? Can we try for a second to take that whole Jesus adage of like turn the other cheek? And I know that's the most impossible thing to ask for right now. It really is, especially when you feel like you're in the midst of a battle. I promise you, I get it. Like I totally understand. But there's so much wisdom. There's so much depth to that call to pray for your enemy, right? It's not just a turn the other cheek type thing, man. It's not just a tacit understanding of like all things work out for good. I promise you, it's so much deeper than that. And there's so much true wisdom in the idea. Let me read some of these Facebook comments and then I'll give you a sense of warning as to where I think we're going if we don't stop some of this nonsense now. Here's Facebook. Eric said, it's the communist playbook written by its most infamous voices. I hate to be that guy, but I'm that guy. I want unity. I want it just as bad as anyone, but there are many who want unity for the canceling of the USA. Well, that's valid. I hear you. How do you talk to people like that? When communication breaks down, where do you turn? That's my question for you today, Mr. Henry. How do you begin to change the minds of those who aren't trying to have them change? Bro, that's it, right? That is it. That's exactly what's happening. And that's the exact question that everybody is asking their minds right now on both sides. And even people in the middle are kind of being caught up with this as well. Because even those that are not yet relegated to the fringe, for a very long time, we've all just been focusing on the 5 to 8% that's leading the narrative on both sides here. If it bleeds, it leads. It gets the most attention, yada, yada. We know the reasons why. We don't have to rehash that. But what Eric is talking about is now, like, even the alleged reasonable people in the middle, libertarian leaning or socialist leaning, it doesn't necessarily matter. Republican leaning, Democrat leaning, the vast majority of us have been somewhere in the middle. We certainly have not been fringe. Otherwise, they would not be labeled as fringe. And what Eric is saying now is like, all right, dude, so I've been pulled into this. Unnecessarily, but also I've been compelled to be pulled into this type of thing. And I'm noticing myself now having conversations with people that I'm thinking like, dude, some people they just don't want to be convinced. You just can't convince them. And frankly speaking, I don't know, man. You may just have to let some people go. I know that's a terrible thing to say. It is a terrible thing to say. But if you're finding yourself, my advice right now would be, if you're finding yourself an inability to present truth, if someone is just not listening, if anything that you are going to say to someone else is only going to result in further division between you and that person, just stop bringing it up. Stop talking. And I know that's a terrible thing to say, like, silence is silence is what they're asking for. Well, yes, I'm not telling you to stop saying truth in general. I'm just saying if you're going to risk a friendship or relationship with it, or I don't know, a familial relationship with it or something, what's the better outcome here? I don't think some people can be saved during times like this. We're in the time of Overton window shift right now. I was talking to my wife about this over the weekend. It's like, man, how do you operate in a situation where truth needs to be asserted, but at the same time you don't want to be an a-hole about it. Truth needs to be asserted, but you don't want to be further. You don't want to be even more divisive than you were before. And I don't know whether you'll like me dropping some of the religious stuff from time to time, but I'm telling you, man, like the Christ example, I think is the best way to do this. Like he went to the sinners of society. He found the people that were the dregs of society. Those are the people that he sought out first and foremost. He spoke truth into their lives and unabashedly said, it is what it is. I'm going to find you. I'm going to love you where you're at. You can take it or leave it type thing. He didn't force them to come around. He didn't coerce them. There wasn't some type of threat. There wasn't some sense of ultimatum. Do this or else I strike you down thing. It was your decision. It's your decision. There are repercussions to your decision, absolutely. But at the end of the day, it is your decision. And I will respect that free will decision, rightfully so. I think that's the only way you can handle it. Come to someone out of love and respect. Tell them what you believe to be truth. And at the end, say, like, look, man, but it's your right to do. That is what radical freedom means, right? Eric, when I say, yeah, that's the garbage, screw the people, I want my way, bunch of sniveling children. Yeah. Daniel said, but he can get upset about that. He's a politician. Of course, he's a lawyer. I'm not sure who was that talking about. Oh, Curcio. Curcio, actually, oddly enough, believe this or not, Curcio is the head of the Judiciary Committee, but he is not an attorney. Doesn't have a law degree. Going on to the national story at hand here. Let me take a quick pause here, man. Let's get some updates from Shine if there's any other comments that I'm missing or anything like that, or if you want to add to this story, man. Also, Real News
you're doing
Radio.
a great job, buddy. You're doing
thanks,
a fantastic job. I'm playing in the chat and sharing this stuff all over the place and trying to keep an eye out on those show notes and throw up stuff for you. But you're doing a great job talking about the Tennessee legislature, and I thought that was a really good take at a time where we need unity. We need good examples.
Yeah, man.
We have shaky ground we're all standing on. It's totally the right thing to mock petty communication in our legislature. It's totally appropriate, and it's not to be personally condemning of anybody. If any of those legislators happen to be watching or hear about this or whatever, it's not about being condemning you personally. It's about us saying, hey, the standard should be you leaders, the folks who are making decisions in these hard times, be a good example for the rest of us. Don't bicker. At least don't bicker in public. Goodness, please. Like, in a time where, on the extremes, people are being incredibly violent to each other, we don't need on the far end of the spectrum, people are supposed to be like our responsible adult people we look up to, don't need to be bickering. They need, that's a terrible spectrum. Responsible adult bickering over here and people committing violence way over here. We need a wider spectrum where we look at people and go, that's how we should maybe be reacting to things. In this nice way, in this generous way. Generous is maybe a better word. But I loved your commentary on it, and thank you for keeping us informed on what's going on in the Tennessee legislature, Grant.
Let me move into this next national story then. And Shine, I mean, the New York Times is probably going to paywall you on this one, so you may just want to stick with the show notes, or I mean, just at least show the headline if you want to. But the headline now is, is Roosevelt statue to be removed from Museum of Natural History. Now, before I get too much in the story, let me just say here that, like, frankly, in a vacuum. And this is going to sound terrible to say, in a vacuum, I don't find this particular story too problematic. I say that because, look, man, as far as the statues are concerned, like, bro, dude, in a free, open society, as long as there's a coalescence of the willing, like, I don't care what you do. Honestly, statues, no statues, it does not make a difference to me. My only real concern here, dude, is like if you do it through a sense of element of coercion, everyone's going to have a problem with that. If, however, you can convince your fellow man to remove something, run it through the proper channels, the avenues that we have to enact societal change and get it done that way, then, dude, what? That's how it got up there. And let's be for real here. Pause for a second. If Republicans are having a problem with removing the statues right now, dude, go look up the Democrats that put the statues up there, man. Like, let's be for real. The overwhelming majority of the statues that are in this state in Tennessee, I'm pretty sure, were put up by Democrat-led legislature. For real, man. So let's call this for what it is. Take a beat. Calm down. Everyone needs to stop playing by the other side's rules. There has to be one of the two of these sides has to pick a standard that's going to be virtuous and remain to that. This story in particular, let me just tell you what's going on if you don't actually know what's happening. All right. So the bronze statue of Theodore Roosevelt on horseback is flanked by a Native American and an African American, which has presided over the entrance to the American Museum of Natural History in New York since 1940. That's coming down. The decision proposed by the museum and agreed to by New York City, which owns, there it is, right? I should have highlighted that in the show notes, but that's basically what I'm saying. The decision proposed by the museum and agreed to by New York City. I presume that means some type of legislative body on behalf of New York City. Now, again, someone could say, oh, they're all Democrats, Mr. Henry. Yeah, man, but in a representative republic, it is what it is, okay? Like, that's what ends up happening. In the densification of a metropolitan area, you tend to get more Democrat representation. I suppose one could say if you don't like it, then more Republicans move in, change their minds, or move back out to the suburbs. I don't know. Going on, the museum agreed to it by New York City, which owns the building and property, came after years of objections from activists at a time when the killing of George Floyd was initiated an urgent nationwide conversation about racism. Now, some director here, who is this, the museum's president, he said in an interview, over the last few weeks, our museum community has been profoundly moved by the ever-widening movement for racial justice that has emerged after the killing of George Floyd. We have watched as the attention of the world and the country is increasingly turned to the statues as powerful and hurtful symbols of systemic racism. All right, gotcha. It's that highlighted section that's most important to me, though. He made it clear that the museum's decision was based on the statue itself, namely its hierarchical composition, and not on Roosevelt, the person, whom the museum continues to honor as a pioneering conservative. That's not what there's conservationist. Sorry, conservationist. The museum took action, yada, yada, amid this national debate. Go on down there. It said, last week alone, a crowd set fire to a statue of George Washington. Before I read that, okay, so let me just nail this point home one more time. In this particular case, if there is a right way to do the statue removal thing, I believe this is a decent, not a great, but a decent example of the proper way to do it. If you have a statue, you want it removed, it was put up there through a Democrat process, let's remove it through a Democrat process. And let me tell you this right now, too, okay? Quick aside, for those polling, let me just poll people that watch this right now. What do you all think happens to these statues after they're defaced and torn down? Think they just leave those spots open? No, dude, they put the statues back up. If you don't believe me, all right, so over the weekend, there was some saint. I forget the guy's name, man. I really should remember this if I'm going to talk about it. But there was some saint in San Francisco. The guy's statue was torn down, and they cut his head off a couple of these. Well, they did the same thing in 2017. Now, the irony of this is one of the statues that they beheaded, they also beheaded in 2017. So all they're really doing is charging more taxpayer dollars to fix those statues. It's not like they removed them entirely. So these people that are out there protesting, we're going to tear down these statues, it's going to be a great thing, blah, blah. Well, dude, give it a year or two. The exact same thing's going to be back up there. That's what I'm talking about. It doesn't accomplish anything except for the here and now. If you want to accomplish something, solve it through the Democrat process, like you guys like to claim that you love so much, remove it properly, and it'll be done forever. Gone. Wipe your hands of it. Otherwise, it's highly likely you're going to see that same statue back up there again in a couple of years. So what are you actually doing going forward? Last week alone, back to the New York Times story in the show notes, because this next Twitter video is exactly what I'm going to here. And it's also part of the show theme for today. Can we all calm down for a second? Because this stuff is far too predictable. I'll get to some Facebook comments here in just a second because I see they're going crazy. Last week alone, a crowd set fire to George Washington, statue of George Washington in Portland. Before pulling it to the ground, gunfire broke out during a protest in Albuquerque to demand the removal of a statue there. A depiction of a conquistador in of New Mexico. And New York City Council members demanded that a statue of Thomas Jefferson be removed from City Hall. Now, this all seems fairly commonplace right now. Sean, I heard that you had that clip pulled up. Now, let me preface this clip real quick. John Oliver does drop a... Okay, that works. You think so? Weak. All right. Yeah, okay. All right. Well, whatever. John Oliver drops a piece of profanity. Sean was just telling me my ear off air that is probably going to get us with a copyright claim and shut down the stream if we do something with it. So whatever. Just suffice to say, if you want to, go to the show notes at the top of the section there. You'll see the Evernote link, or you can follow along. Okay. All right. Yeah, so what you're seeing on your screen then is basically John Oliver playing a clip of President Trump saying, like, look, they're talking about, I saw they're removing Robert E. Lee, and they're talking about, like, whatever the mountain is in Georgia. I don't know, man. Stone Mountain. Yeah, they're talking about doing something with Stone Mountain. This is back in 2017. And President Trump says, what's next? Where's the line? Are they going to be talking about removing, statues of Thomas Jefferson next? And John Oliver, to his credit, actually has great writers on that staff. Like, a lot of his stuff is legitimately funny. But this was a joke that just totally missed. He ended up telling a joke. Well, I'll tell you where the line is. There is an effing line. The line is somewhere. What? What are you talking about? The line is somewhere. That's not an argument. Where? The point is where. You can't just say somewhere. He goes on to say, like, it's like you're going to give your child an Advil, but you also wouldn't then go inject the child with black tar heroin. All right, dude. It's just like the logic of that is absurd. It's asinine. And aside from it just being asinine logic, it's not all that funny either. But the point is, in 2017, Trump was mocked relentlessly for suggesting that at that time we could take down statues of Jefferson. Well, we're here now. And again, one more time, as I go into the next story, because the next story is what's most important, I articulate, this was probably done the right way with as far as it pertains to Roosevelt. Convince your fellow man, if you own the property, take it through the proper channels of a Democrat-led process. If you don't, it's just going to stick around. If you deface the head, if you cut the head off of one of these things, they're just going to put it right back up. What are you actually doing? We also see now here rioters in California tear down a statue of Ulysses S. Grant. It's like, dude, I don't know. Here's the headline from Daily Wire. Didn't he defeat the Confederacy? Didn't he try and devastate the KKK? I don't know, dude. I don't know what's going on anymore. Here's some comments from Facebook, by the way. Eric said the Roosevelt statue is a bit racy. Maybe move it to the basement. Yeah, right. I don't have a problem with that, dude. I don't have a problem with that. I just have a problem with not doing it the proper way.
Let's be real, though. Let's be real. You only think it's racy because the Overton window is shifted. If 4 years ago someone had said, hey, let's tear down the Roosevelt statue in front of the National History Museum in New York, you would have been like, what? Just beware. And I'm not necessarily saying anyone's wrong for wanting to take down that statue. What I'm saying is pay attention, and I drop things on purpose, by the way, in order to
emphasize
create a memory. Just pay attention that your own window, I'll even stop using the word Overton, your own window has shifted. Mine too. It's not like I'm immune from this. But what else is okay that you didn't think was okay before? These are things to think about in these times. But yeah, I agree. Maybe they should put it in the basement. But in all these other places, the problem for me, Grant, is it's like they knew they weren't going to be able to break buildings anymore. That was going to be put to an end. So they found something they could destroy. And no one stopped. No matter who the statue is, it's okay to destroy that. Because no one's going to stop them from destroying the statues. There were going to be people coming after them with bullets if they kept burning down buildings, And I don't mean that, and I don't want anyone to get hurt. I don't want anyone to be hurt, ever, But I think what people did was say, okay, take all that energy and run it towards statues because they won't stop you for that. They will stop you from burning Fifth Avenue if you try that again, That, I don't know.
By the way, one of our buddies from back in the day, Alexander Shaw, he's got a comment on Facebook. Quick aside, though, Alexander Shaw became a father over the weekend. Congrats, buddy. That's what I'm talking about. The day before Father's Day. Beautiful child. Threw the picture up on Facebook.
Beautiful.
Check out the picture. His Facebook profile picture is possibly the greatest thing I've ever seen, by the way. It's literally, it's like if you can put fatherhood into a picture, it's his profile picture right now. It's like, dude, everything just changed. Like the world just changed. And I can't even empathize because I barely know what I'm talking about, but that picture says it all. Congrats, Alex, for real. He says in Facebook. Yeah, that's right, man. He says in Facebook, by the way, nothing. It does nothing. Meaning the statues, taking them down. I presume what he means is it does nothing. And Alex, dude, I'm 100% there with you. Doing it through this process literally means nothing. Ideologically, it means nothing. Practically, it means nothing because the vast majority of the time they put those statues right back where they came from, right back up. And more importantly, they take them back to art restorers to restore them back to their former glory and put them back up there again. So you're just using taxpayer expenses to basically refurbish the thing that you just took down. I mean, at the end of the day, all you're really doing is using taxpayer dollars to make a statue look a little bit brighter than it was before. Let's be real about that. So now they're saying they want to take down statues of Ulysses S. Grant. Daniel said in Facebook, Nathan Bedford Forrest is the one who dissolved the KKK when it went from fighting the carpetbaggers to fighting African Americans. Okay. Now here's what I'm saying, okay? So we just went on this entire story about statues being torn down and all this other stuff, right? The theme of today is, can we stop playing the other side's game? And I don't care what that means for you. I don't care if you're on the left and you watch this program and you think it's terrible people on the right. I don't care if it's the right that watch this program and you think it's terrible people on the left. I don't care how you describe yourself. I just want you to stop playing what you think the alleged rules are on the other side. Because as you do that, you stop talking to each other. And as you stop talking to each other, we continually live in this fabricated reality where we think there's a boogeyman on the other side that never actually materializes to anything. And then we end up fighting either ourselves or this alleged boogeyman. What is this? Jean de La Fontaine? Jean de La Fontaine. The person that's credited with this phrase is a person often meets his destiny on the road he took to avoid it. So here's my plea for today. If those on the left or those that disagree with Trump, which arguably might even be some people on the right now, whoever disagrees with Trump, if you think the fact that we have Trump is a bad result, what in the world do you think is going to be the result out of this trash? Please tell me that. Do you think it's going to be better than Trump? Do you think it's going to be less caustic than Trump? Do you think it's going to cost the American people less than what you think Trump is costing the American people right now? And for those that agree with what Trump is doing, are you not more emboldened now to do something even further than Trump has ever done? If Trump were to come out tomorrow and say, you know what, we're going to do fill in the blank, regardless of constitutional violations, the vast majority of Trump supporters would be like, heck yeah, bro. Heck yeah. Time to stand up for, yeah, man, I'm tired of this nonsense. That's exactly what's going on right now. I promise you, if we keep doing this to ourselves, market force reactions will give us something like we can't predict we couldn't predict Trump. You think we're going to be able to predict what comes out of this stuff? I'm telling you that's what's going to happen. Don't allow this stuff to go much further. Let those on the left Look, I'm telling you, we cannot allow this stuff to go much further, lest those on the left end up forcing those on the right to play the exact same game they are playing by the same rules. If the left forces capitulation, if it coerces allegiance through some kind of threat, i.e. bend the knee or else, i.e. renounce your worldview or else, then we will be left with a silent majority that exactly what I just said. A silent majority that is forced to play the same games by those same rules. And the last time that happened, we elected Trump. What do you think is going to happen this time? Case in point, Shine, go to that next story if you can. The Summit News story. Case in point, check out this guy named Jesse Kelly. He has started a cancel universities trend. I don't know who this dude is, and I don't know where he came from, but this is exactly what I'm talking about, y'all. So read some of these tweets that's going on. And Sean, before you do that, let me read some of these setup tweets that he said that will set up the scenario by which I'm talking about. Some of his tweets in the show notes that I grabbed. He said, here's the tweet. He said, reminder, I want everyone and everything to be left alone. This is before he went on this whole rant about canceling universities. He said, reminder, I want everyone and everything to be left alone. That's all I wanted. But this has gone far enough. It's on now. What's on now? The guy is basically using the leftist rules to shut down universities, Ivy League institutions, because the overwhelming majority of Ivy League institutions are named after slave traders. Yale, Brown, Rice. I mean, Cornell. Here's the headline. Yale could be the latest institution. I'm laughing. It's a little bit funny, dude. It's kind of an I told you so type moment. It's exactly what I've been saying. Dude, if you force the right to play the same game by the same rules, they will do it if you ask them to hard enough. Do you want that result? Yale could be the latest institution to be targeted by the woke mob for cancellation after it was noted that the university's founder, Elihu Yale, was a successful slave trader. Ironically, it appears that cancel Yale is gaining traction because a conservative activist who's campaigned against leftist university brainwashing in America, he's the one that's starting this. Here's Jesse Kelly. A reminder at this very moment that Yale, tagging Yale, is still displaying the likeness of Elihu Yale. He literally tortured and killed black people for the color of their skin, and he trafficked them across the Atlantic into a life of slavery. This is him responding to the New York Times article from the Roosevelt statue that we just read. He goes on to say, my life goal is to burn the American university system to ash for what it's done to the minds of this generation and salt the ground on which it stood. Dude, do I need to prove this point anymore to y'all? I see Facebook going crazy. I'm going to hit those comments here in a second. Do I need to prove this point anymore? That if we play these same game, play these same rules, and there's not a single one of us that's going to hold to some higher standard or higher virtue of the Christ-like thing that I said before of approach someone in love and kindness and understanding, meet them where they're at, present truth to them, and let them make up their own decision. You have to be willing to let people go. Some people are not going to change their minds. That's okay. You have to be willing to change your friend group in a time like this. You have to be willing to offend a few people in a time like this. But let the truth do the offending. Make sure you are not the offender, right? It's not just semantic. There's a substantial difference in the way that you present those things. Look at this guy, man. His life goal is to burn the American university system to the ground. And now he is now he has a justifiable reason to do so because they have set the parameters by which it should burn. So he's forced them into a situation where it's like, okay, admit your hypocrisy or take the statue down. Admit your hypocrisy or burn the university to the ground. He's saying, I'm calling on both parties in Congress to pass the Strip University Credentials Act, which is called the Suck Act, which I think is just absolutely hilarious. The Strip University's Credential Act for every American university like Yale, Georgetown, Brown, who are founded by slave owners in university racism and these monuments to slavery. I mean, you can see all this stuff going on. He's Paul Krugman here. He writes something funny how these things keep happening. Scheduling a rally in Tulsa on Juneteenth using a Nazi symbol and campaign ads. He's obviously talking against the way that Trump is running some of his stuff. Why it's almost as if the Trump campaign is full of white supremacists. So these dog whistle stuff that you're talking about before. Now, Jesse Kelly's response to that is like, Paul, didn't you attend Yale University? Wasn't it named after a prominent slave trader? Do you know or have you ever believed black people are commodities? How many black people have you apologized to for attending Yale? I mean, dude, just like straight up playing that same game. Like this is how a leftist would respond. Now, if he's doing it under satire, I suppose it's one thing, but he's not. He's basically doing it as a right person playing the same games, and he is doing it for the stated purpose of burning academia to the ground. He's not even playing a character about it. Will Chamberlain, another person here, says the transformation of Jesse Kelly is a pretty... I'm a pretty normal conservative who makes funny jokes about his wife into I will destroy your left-wing institutions using your own rules and laugh while I'm doing so is deeply heartening. He says Godspeed. And that's probably the tweet that I want to leave this on because it's exactly what I said before, man. It's one thing if just a guy is doing it. It's another thing if he's now getting support from everyone else on the right for doing it. The rules are changing. They're changing underneath our feet, man. I'm telling you. If and when the right wakes up to the realization that the left is no longer worried about winning elections, they're not. They are not worried about winning elections anymore. They are worried about changing this landscape. This is the Overton window. This is where the new paradigm shift is happening, right? This is what's going on. No one's worried about, the left isn't worried about winning elections anymore. Dude, they're shutting down free speech through Facebook. They're not worried about the Supreme Court anymore. They are censoring you on Twitter. They are slowly and subtly and casually changing what we believe to be the underlying values, the precepts of free speech. Why do you need the Supreme Court anymore if you can do that? Why do you need legislation to shut down speech if you can get the people to self-censor? And the right's playing the same game, man, and they're being loved for it. Finally, lastly, here, back in the show notes, when someone calls this guy out for, quote, turning into a leftist, arguably in a little bit like I'm trying to do today, I'm trying to advocate against this stuff. I'm trying to advocate towards a much more Christ-like mentality of dude, approach in love and kindness and be charitable and find them where they're at and let truth deliver it. Let truth be offensive. Don't you be the offensive one. When someone calls him out for it, this is his response. You're turning into a leftist. He says, each and every part of American history with a connection to slavery must burn. These are the rules now. There is no greater monument to slavery than the Americans' university system. Burn it down. These are the rules now, he says. He says, I don't care. I don't care what you call me. Call me leftist if you want to. You're not going to hurt my feelings by this. These are the rules. And when we're all playing a game by those rules, it doesn't matter. You're just not recognizing the rules. I got a clip from Joe Rogan here. I want to play in just a second. Yeah. Let me hit. And Sean, if you see some better ones here, buddy, let me know. Okay, let me start with her. She, Jessica Letter says, Trump, Biden, or Joe? Can I vote for none? Oh, man, that was a little bit where we're at, right? I mean, I don't know, man. Trump or Biden. She's basically saying I'm stuck with those. And Joe, the libertarian candidate, I'm sure she's thinking like, man, I would love to, but the pitch has basically been into duopoly. And this is what she's thinking. This is what I've always said in a duopoly. What do you really say about that? I mean, I don't know, bro. I honestly don't know. I don't know what you do about voting this time around. I mean, where I'm personally at, I couldn't tell you that either. I would love to see someone like Joe come through. If for nothing else, I'd like to see her get 5% for matching federal funds. I'd like to see the libertarians finally hold the conservative party to an ideal that's, back to true conservative roots.
As a matter of clarity, people probably shouldn't call Ms. Jorgensen Joe. Then people might confuse her with Joe Biden. Oh, yeah. Good call. I didn't think about that. You're right. Yeah. Libertarian candidate Joe Jorgensen. Right. Daniel said, but Jessica, she's got a great point. I mean, what do you do in a time like this? And that's why I'm saying, like, I think it's going to be tough to say because you just brought it up in the sense of a presidential election that is vitally important, of course. But I do think that the more you can localize solutions, the more you can change the way you think about things to be solution oriented as opposed to just winning. Because that's the realm we're in. Like we are stuck in a situation where you just want to win. You just want to beat the other guy. For everybody, most parties are like this right now. Nobody's really figuring out or trying to focus on. Okay, so what are the screw the politics, man? Like, what are the solutions that we're working towards? I don't care what party comes up with the solution. I don't care if it's D or an R or an L in front of the name, or you got a Batman symbol in front of your name. I really don't care what way you're running. I just want something that works. And I think the best, most effective way to do that. I know you hate to hear this, but focus local. If you can focus locally, those are the laws that actually change your life. Those are the laws that actually affect you directly. It is usually rare that a national directive will come down and directly influence your life on a day-to-day basis. What'd you say, Sean? Gotcha. Do you have it? Oh, there he is. Yeah, there's Randy. Randy says on Facebook, how long until it's decided that humans are all flawed and can't be trusted to govern and an AI will make the decisions? Golly, dude. Goodness gracious. That's a comment, right? Because that's the truth, man. Like, look at where we're at right now. Like, nobody. How do we know that's not happening right now? I mean, how do we know that's not happening right now? With all the world's information being fed through computers? I mean, it wouldn't even have to be one that thought for itself. It could just be a program with rules, right? And we've been talking about the rules have been changing. What kind of force would have the power to change the rules? Dude, and look at what he said to begin with, right? How long is decided until humans are all flawed? Like, nobody can attain that level of perfection that they're wanting to push right now. Like, not a single person. Certainly not a single living person. In the worldview of Christianity, I suppose what you're going to hear is that the only person that could attain that level of perfection is Christ himself. So unless you're talking about replacing every single statue out there with Christ himself, then an AI might be the best secular version that you have to go to. That's what Randy's talking about. How long until we decide that all humans are flawed and we can't trust them to govern? So an AI will make all the decisions. Bro, that's not crazy to say. They're already implementing AI-driven versions of things in Australia.
I'm not playing. Go check this out, bro. Like there was a project that was already implemented that would say, would you choose an AI candidate over a real human being candidate if the AI candidate were guaranteed, like duty bound within its coding to choose such and such. If an AI was duty bound within its coding, like meaning it could not veer off course. There was no way for it to veer off course because it was coded to do so. For voting checkmark, whatever your things are, would you vote for an AI? The overwhelming percentage of people polled said, yes, I would vote for that AI over a real human being. This is what Randy's talking about, y'all. Like it's not outlandish. Kelly said, I want an LP candidate to get traction, to be recognized as a viable alternative to the word I can't say, Dinar. Republicans. It's wearing a posterior on your head, Republicans. Jessica said, yes, just started to look at her. I presume she means look at Joe Jorgensen. Yes, just started to look at her yesterday. Literally, I agree and disagree with some things. Wish there was a better candidate, just my opinion. Eric said, there was an effort to shut down STEM programs not long ago because they're racist. Yeah, we talked about that on Friday, Eric. And that's actually part of the clip. That's why the next clip I want to go to, we may not have time for it in this show, but it's this headline in the show notes that says, please do yourself a favor. Watch the Brett Weinstein, Joe Rogan interview. It's 3 hours long. It is, but it's a fantastic one. And it goes over that STEM shutdown as well. It also goes over Brett Weinstein's, this guy from, Evergreen College, Shine, is that right?
Yes.
Evergreen College. He was a professor there back in 2014. I think this all started, 2015. Don't quote me on that, but somewhere around then. This is the thing where Evergreen College basically wanted to make it a day where the students said, like, hey, nobody show up to campus at all. And this professor, he did show up to campus, try to do his work. They said, no, don't show up to campus out of a move of solidarity for, I don't know, bro, fill in the blank. This guy did, and it kicked off this entire thing. And now Evergreen College was starting the conversation about exactly what's happening right now. And at the time, Brett Weinstein was chastised, mocked relentlessly because the nation was making it out to be a very, in a vacuum. It's just an Evergreen College. It's just that university. This is not something that's going on across the United States.
Someone saw a mob and they tried to warn everybody.
Yes, there you go.
That's a way to summarize the story. Someone saw a crazy ideological mob and said, if this happens on a grander scale, it'll ruin our society and destroy it. And everyone made fun of him for it. And then he was brought back on the Joe Rogan podcast last week to say, hey, there's a mob. It's dangerous, and now it's released and will destroy everything. We need to stop it. I tried to warn you in 2015 or whenever it was. But that's not even everything that's covered on that episode. There's great science stuff. There's great stuff about the protests. Brett Weinstein has been I think 4 or 5 time guest on the Joe Rogan podcast. It's one of the best episodes I've ever watched. I think everyone should check it out.
Eric, by the way, is where we get a lot of this information from. He's always turning folks on to just fantastic podcasts. He always sends us great stuff to research. The story I want to end with today, in the last, say, 8 minutes that we have here, again, is sort of hoping to demonstrate the culmination of everything we've been talking about today. Calm down, take a beat, approach people in love and kindness. Let truth be the one that offends. You do not be the one that offends. We cannot afford to be this naive right now. We cannot afford to alienate our brothers and sisters, and we cannot afford to be divisive any longer. And I say that because other folks, other organizations, other countries are picking up on our weakness. Now we have international organizations that are recognizing America's weakness and trying to do something about it. They're using these issues to sow division amongst us, fueling the flames, making us all pick sides, forcing us to focus on things that distract from our local solutions and our local accomplishments. And I'm going to bring up this next story from Zero Hedge, and I'm telling you right now, like, I am not necessarily using this to make a point on anti-F words. I'm coding my language here because that's apparently what we have to do now. Just read the headline for yourself. Shine could probably show it on the screen for you. This is not my intention to make a point on what's going on right now about the anti-whatever stuff that's going on right now. Anti-F word. If you're listening on some audio version of anti-fash, fill in the blank. Now, President Trump wants to label this organization as a terror organization, which he first announced late last month in response to mayhem unleashed related to George Floyd protest, which in many cities included rioting, looting, and large-scale vandalism. He had declared so via Twitter on May 31st in a follow-up to Attorney General William Barr's statement at the time, quote, the violence instigated and carried out by this A-word group and other similar groups in connection with rioting is domestic T-word, and will be treated accordingly. I know it sounds ridiculous that I'm not saying these actual words, but trust me, from what happened to Real News over the weekend on a Facebook account, it's for a reason, all right? Suffice to say, again, you're not going to be seeing a lot of Real News Facebook posts, at least for a little bit. It's just not going to show up on your timeline, I'll tell you that much. Now, here it is. To the surprise of many, the United Nations has now issued a statement rebuking the White House attempt to impose this legal designation. Go check out this original tweet. The UN faced so much guff for this, they had to delete it, but I actually snapped a photo, because I knew that was probably going to happen, of the original tweet. Here's the original tweet from UN Geneva. The UN human rights experts expressed profound concern over a recent statement by the Attorney General describing #A-word and other A-word anti-whatever activists as domestic T-words, saying it undermines the rights to freedom of expression and peaceful assembly in the country. Again, my point is to not necessarily make a point on anything dealing with the anti-A-word. You know how we feel about that. Communism sucks. Does anybody have to describe that? Do we have to explain why that is? Do I have to show you charts about the hundreds and hundreds of millions of lives that have been lost to that worldview, to that ideology, to that political stance?
And so do communists. Not just the ideology. So do the people who follow it. They suck too.
Do I have to explain to you why that is the most racist ideology that has ever been presented in all of human history? I don't have to explain this to anyone, right? So now that we have that out of the way, my point is not necessarily to focus on that. That's dead horse beating. My point is to focus on an international organization coming in and dictating to Americans that you have to pick and choose. It gets even stranger than that. So again, one more time, they expressed a profound concern over recent statements by the U.S. Attorney General. Upon a UN statement being issued Friday, counter T-word expert Mac Abrams first thought this was a joke. He went on to say, I was wondering why people were actually mocking the UN for being pro-A-word, saying, waiting for the UN to stand behind anti-lying Boko Haram, since they're now taking an organization's name at its face value. That's a good tweet, man. That's a good tweet. I'm waiting for the UN to take Boko Haram stance for their word because they're an anti-lying organization. Now, this even after widespread uncertainty and debate over just or what the group actually is. This is one of probably the main point. The main point of me bringing the Zero Hedge article up today and rehashing this stuff over the weekend. Yes, there has been a defund the UN hashtag going around as well. Real News may or may not have contributed to that over the weekend. This tweet happening, that the UN supporting this anti-A-word movement. This has happened after widespread uncertainty and debate over just who or what the group actually is. We all know this, right? This has been the ongoing thing. What even is it? They're not an organization. They don't have leadership, blah, blah, blah. You've seen before that this group might be more appropriately seen as a loosely defined movement espousing radical leftist ideology, but the new UN statement appears positively supportive, given it's clearly asserted that this group is comprised of mere activists. In essence, the UN is now destroying the narrative that this organization is unorganized, has an unorganized following, is a loose structure of beliefs. In doing so, the UN is also destroying any sense of relevancy it ever had left with the American people. I mean, for goodness sake. They just gave cover for a slew of those on what would be called the far right or otherwise. OAN apparently is now the far right to make the following statement. A-word doesn't even exist. And also the UN just endorsed them. You can see a Twitter link there of a member of this organization flying the UN flag. And that's probably the best place to end it right there. Being that Sean and I have to get off for work-related things right now, but that's the tweet I wanted to end on. A-word doesn't even exist. And also the UN just endorsed them. So which one is it, bro? Which one is it? The reason I want to bring that up today is to book in this entire show with the statement of like, dude, can we please stop being so divisive? Like, you see these elements that are at play, okay? From the very beginning, everybody's been saying there's outside forces that are working this stuff, that it's a bunch of parties of just different sort of like little affiliates that are vying for power. Now we have an international organization that is forcing us to pick sides amongst each other. They don't care how it comes down. They don't care if there's a winner or loser. They already win just by stoking flame. That is the goal. The goal is chaos. Let's make order out of that chaos. My name is Mr. Henry, David Sean Thompson. Love y'all joining us for the show this morning. We got to sign off a little bit early. We'll be back tomorrow doing it big. Love y'all. Peace.